Right, so the Starmer types are not happy bunnies right now up on the Wirral, as their factional rigging of selections is all of a sudden blown up in their faces. A little bit of karma, all thanks to the Green Party. They thought they were onto a winner here. Now they gotten rid of the lefty socialist incumbent MP for Birkenhead ahead of the next election, a chap called Mick Whitley. Boundary changes, giving Starmer and co the opportunity to do this. Reduce the socialist bit of the democratic socialist claim of their party ethos that's on their membership cards, and saving the bacon of one of their worst, former chair of the right-wing faction Progress, Alison McGovern, whose own seat was being abolished by the very same boundary changes Starmerites have been weaponising against the left-wing MPs. This was an instance where it has paid off. But then along came the Green Party and stuck socialism firmly back on that ballot, all whilst rubbing the Labour rights racism weaponising noses in it too, for good measure, because the Greens have selected former Labour councillor turned Green Party councillor Joe Bird to stand for them against McGovern in Birkenhead. Birkenhead is solidly Labour, some of you might be thinking, yet Labour's conduct in the North East has been nothing short of offensive and appalling for quite some time now. For example, forcing Labour City Councillors in Liverpool out for not supporting a Tory imposed budget, thus creating the now rapidly growing in popularity Liverpool Independents Group, is one such example. They who have taken city council seats from Labour since and are looking at taking another in an upcoming by-election. That's just one instance. Back on the Wirral itself, in Birkenhead, the switch from a socialist MP to a right-wing red Tory one isn't going down well either there. It's a lot of resentment and anger towards Labour for their blatantly factional behaviour. For one thing, this runoff between two serving MPs was completely unnecessary, as the MP for Wirral West, Margaret Greenwood, was vacating her seat and McGovern could have just gone there. There's hell up in that constituency too, but that'll have to wait for another video. But let's look at the numbers here in Birkenhead too, because ultimately they are, at the end of the day, what counts, isn't it? In 2019, Labour won with a majority of nearly 18,000 there, well ahead of every other candidate on the ballot. And in fact, the Green Party came last. So why are they all of a sudden this threat to Labour then? Well, actually, it's been true that this is a really safe seat. You can see why Starmer wants an ally like McGovern to go there. His current shadow minister for employment as she is. Her own majority in her outgoing seat that's being abolished, Wirral South, was only just over 6,000, so she was far more vulnerable there. But the Greens have become a threat because of the surge in popularity that we've seen over the course of this summer for their party. They did devastatingly well in Birkenhead, along with the rest of the country, catapulting them up the results table to finish on top in this year's local elections there. The party that came last in the 2019 general election gained 12 seats and 38% of the vote in the locals, compared to Labour losing 5 Wirral council seats, taking 36% of the vote. The other parties, the Tories, the Lib Dems, again, they were nowhere to be seen, just as they weren't anywhere to be seen in 2019. The stories are far, far different for the Green Party. Now, people will say that voters vote differently in general elections and local elections, and they aren't good indicators of how people will vote one to another, and they would be right to an extent in saying that. But if the same voting pattern were to be repeated, the Greens would win this seat at the next general election. This is, in effect, no longer a safe Labour seat, when the Greens won Birkenhead back in May. You know, if you think Labour are shrugging their shoulders at the prospect of the Green Party giving them a run for their money, well, you'd be wrong there. Because their reaction to the Green Party announcing Joe Bird as their candidate has had them wailing and making some very familiar, odious noises about it at that. Joe Bird is a former Labour councillor, as I said, who joined the Green Party after being expelled from Labour for the crime of speaking at a pro-Corbyn meeting, and was indeed re-elected earlier this year to sit on Wirral Council, a seat Labour obviously lost through their own petty, vindictive factionalism. Bird is also Jewish, so what made her expulsion back in 2021 all the more contemptible is that it came just days after Starmer told a meeting of Labour Friends of Israel that his party will be a place for all Jews. Clearly not true if Joe Bird was not welcome to be part of it, though Starmer's view of what counts as Jewish might be a bit different to a lot of people's, Zionist without qualification as he is. And speaking to LFI about such things, friends of an apartheid state, frankly, well, this speaks for itself, doesn't it? Bird expected it, wasn't perturbed by it at all, and upon receiving the news of her expulsion said, "I'm delighted the Labour Party has expelled me today. I'm free from fear about speaking and meeting with other people. I continue to work for the people of Bromborough as your councillor, for the many, not the few." This racist Labour Party is dying as a vehicle for social justice. Not mincing her words, defiant, and she's continued to be ever since. She's also popular in her area. To give you an example of just how terrified of this lady Labour are, how determined they were to single her out, they literally sent Starmer's sidekick, David Evans, to Bromborough back in April as part of the local election campaign. The General Secretary of the Labour Party himself sent all the way to canvass against Joe Bird, begging and pleading for local Labour members to come out and join him on the doorstep, and they still failed. Of the 3 council seats up for grabs in Bromborough earlier this year, it was a clean sweep for the Green Party, with Bird herself taking 20% of the vote. If anything, the prominence of Evans appearing on the Wirral just showed people how terrified of their local favourite the highest echelons of the Labour Party were. And so they're making it clear again now, with Bird having been selected as the Green parliamentary candidate. She's well known, she's popular, she's local, and Labour have offered up a right-wing replacement for an MP they've been perfectly happy to vote in with a decent majority last time out. Nobody can accuse Mick Whitley of not earning his seat. McGovern is just looking to maintain her spot on the gravy train, but such is the fear in Labour of losing the seat that smears are rapidly getting circulated now. The most oft-used accusation against Bird is that she was expelled over anti-Semitism. Oh, that one again. How boring. She wasn't. She just dared still support Jeremy Corbyn, stood by her socialist principles, and got thrown out for it by a party leadership who have no principles, at least not ones that aren't for sale to the highest bidder. One Twitter user, @PiesMcQ, put the reasoning for this better than I ever could in a tweet to me. They said there's going to be massive amounts of attacks on Joe Bird from now on. Know why? 1, she's a great councillor who trashed Labour in Bromborough. She's my local councillor in brackets. And 2, most importantly, they are shit scared of her because she could very well beat Alison McGovern. Couldn't agree more, Pies. The Greens have selected a Jewish candidate, and the accusations she's anti-Jew have come down on her. Isn't implying someone is a self-hating Jew anti-Semitic itself? Somebody remind me, I'm sure that it is. Some people really ought to watch themselves here. But the lengths Labour are going to are hilarious here. Jewish News, always ready to bash the left, especially when the piece is penned by Lee Harpin, went to the Jewish Labour movement. Labour movement, because asking Labour about a Green Party candidate is absolutely normal, of course. And naturally, the JLM's Mike Katz was happy to put the boot in. He said, it's bad enough the Green Party accepting Joe Bird into their ranks after she was expelled from Labour for supporting groups which denied the party's problem with anti-Semitism. JLM wrote to their leaders to point out rewarding racism wasn't progressive, but they ignored us. Now they've decided to double down and install Ms. Bird as a parliamentary candidate. Do the Greens really think she's fit to be an MP? This is a terrible decision and will offend Jews in Merseyside and beyond. To that, as a Green myself, I say to hacks like Harpin, other media, and especially factional fools like Katz, to stay in your lane. If you want to conduct yourselves as you have in relation to anti-Semitism, weaponising it for factional purposes as you have, then you do you. People will leave. They won't stand by you. I did, and like Joe Bird, I've never looked back since joining the Greens myself. If you want to carry on weaponising this issue, then just carry on doing it. If you want to attack your own members and supporters with purges and suspensions and expulsions, and unjust as so many of them have been, then don't be surprised you're losing support to the Greens, especially when so many of us have found it to be the new home of socialism. We support each other in the Green Party. We don't turn on each other. Reinforcing that is a tweet from Deputy Green Party leader himself, Zach Polanski, also Jewish, funnily enough, nailing the point home. He said there's been 5 Jewish people in leadership positions in British political history. I'm really proud to be one of them, and I'm proud of the role the Jewish Greens play more widely in the Green Party. Now let's go get Joe elected in Birkenhead. What Labour are doing is not only seeking to drive socialists out of their own party, but to delegitimise the politics of the left. And so they're now turning on the Greens. Hell will freeze over the day that any of us in the Green Party should take any notice of Labour and the state they're in, with how they conduct themselves. We'll deal with the scourge of real anti-Semitism our way, properly, when it's the real deal, and not just because you keep making false claims which harm the real fight against the real thing. The attacks on Joe Bird will continue, but she's strong, she's focused, and she's taking no nonsense. She is popular not only because she's hardworking and competent, but because she stands for the many, not the few, still. We're allowed to do that in the Green Party, and as such, Birkenhead, despite having lost Mick Whitley, will still have a socialist option on that general election ballot. If you miss that sense of fighting for change, for socialist ideals, to fix this country in our interests rather than that of the establishment, having left Labour or become disenfranchised by them yourself, you would do worse than to join us, quite frankly. Joe Bird can indeed beat Alison McGovern. Labour know it, and they're bricking it. And the most delicious piece of irony of all is that having Joe Bird standing against them now is entirely of their own doing. I wish Jo all the luck in the world. She will make an epic MP, and the North West can still proudly claim to be the socialist capital of Britain. It just means ditching the red and taking up green. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Do leave a comment and have your say about all of this. Are you with me and feel green is the way to go? Have you been impressed by Jo Bird, or is she still unfamiliar to you? She's, well, worth looking into a little bit further. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where Keir Starmer's insistence that oil and gas investors need certainty and staunch refusal to ditch new prospective oil and gas field licenses being granted by Rishi Sunak, well, they're opening the door to further Greens electorally. If he won't offer change, then others will. It's the Greens for me, in which case, and I'll hopefully see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.